Hello and welcome to the Entrepreneurial Musician, a newsletter, coaching service, podcast, and blog preparing today's musicians for tomorrow's realities. This is TEM 286 titled Not Making a Decision is Still Making One. Thank you to Parker Mouthpieces for providing the hosting for TEM. Parker Mouthpieces offers fine, customizable component mouthpieces for horn, trombone, euphonium, and tuba, including the Andrew Hitz Artist Model Tuba mouthpiece. You can find out more at parkermouthpieces.com or follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If you are not subscribed to the Portfolio Career Playbook newsletter, then you missed last week's quartet of ideas, which included links to an incredible article about how to design the perfect day. My favorite section of which, by the way, was titled Busyness is Just a Lack of Priorities. That one got my attention. The top 10 lessons from one of my favorite business books ever, The 4 Types of Luck, of which 3 of them are kind of in your control, which I found very empowering, and more. If you'd like to join the many TEM listeners who are already subscribed to the Portfolio Career Playbook and receive the tips, tricks, and inspiration needed to thrive with a portfolio career in today's music business, then head to signup.tem.fm and subscribe today. Okay, TEM 286, not making a decision is still making one. I read something this week that reminded me of this concept, one which I can always stand to be reminded of. When I am scared or nervous about making a decision, I do what all of us tend to do, which is put off making that decision. But there's a problem which you may be able to relate to. I would never say to myself, I'm scared about this decision I have to make, so I'm going to do what is easiest right in this very moment and put it off. If I started that sequence, I would immediately realize that I'm going to have to make the decision at some point, and if it isn't going to get any easier later, then I might as well just rip that Band-Aid off and make the decision now. But I am smart, in air quotes, in case you are listening to this and not watching it on the TEM YouTube channel. I am smart enough to not start that sequence in my head because the entire goal for me in that moment is not making the decision right now. But I have to tell myself something to justify that. So, what does that narrative usually look like? For me, it usually looks like I need to do a little more research before deciding. I should sleep on it. There's no rush. I should ask some people I trust for advice before proceeding. The list goes on and on. You might have just heard that list and thought, wait, all of those are good things to do sometimes when making decisions, especially difficult ones. And you're right. That's exactly the problem. When I'm faced with a decision that is making me a little uncomfortable, I have a hard time discerning whether a little more research is actually what I need or whether I am just using that as an excuse to put off making a difficult decision. Again, I'd see right through it if I recognized that I was putting things off out of fear or uncertainty. So I tricked myself into believing that the reason is something much more palatable to my ego. But I have found a way to level the playing field in the battle with my own mind, and that is reminding myself that not making a decision is still making a decision. If I really should confront someone about something that might be a little contentious, not deciding whether to do it or when or where or how to do it, or any of 19 other things, is actually deciding not to do it. And so if this conversation was needed, let's say a musical partner doesn't seem to share the same view of how we are sharing the workload on some project, then by putting off that decision, I am tacitly endorsing the current arrangement, whatever it is. If I want to start selling compositions or arrangements, but I am too scared to decide on a price, then I am temporarily deciding to not sell my arrangements yet. And I'm not minimizing the fact that deciding how much to charge for your art is a difficult decision to make. You don't want to feel too greedy by charging too much. But if you listen to this podcast, then you've heard me say over and over again that pricing is a very important part of the story you are telling people about your art. You are automatically going to assume that someone who is charging $10,000 for a marching band arrangement is going to do a better job than someone who charges $1,000. So you're stuck. At that point, the easiest thing to do in the moment is to tweak the website a little more or ask one more person how much they think you should charge or research a few more marching band arrangers to see how much the others charge or open up the quartet of ideas that you haven't read from TEM's newsletter. All those things are good, especially the newsletter part. It's like, it'll change your life. Actually, I don't know if it will, but people have been giving me good feedback. I'm off script. These are all good things, but if you want to sell your arrangements, at some point you just have to pick a damn price and tell the world it's available. And you can always change the price 5 minutes later if you want to. So just make the decision. One final observation on this subject is that I find that in general, there are more consequences for not making a decision than for making a bad one. Letting fear talk me into inaction tends to lead me in that direction for the next decision as well. For me, inaction tends to lead to more inaction. But even a bad decision leads to a concrete benefit, which is data that something didn't work. That can be for any number of reasons, and figuring out whether it didn't work because of the substance of the decision or the timing or the execution, all of that. That's the fun part. But knowing that something didn't work is actionable advice in that it informs your next decision, even if that decision is that you no longer want to pursue whatever it is that you were doing. By the way, making that decision from experience rather than from just fear or wondering is really empowering. The knowledge and earned wisdom that comes from making decisions, executing on them, and then learning from them, the good and the bad, is what powers every single successful person or venture. Lather, rinse, repeat. So, to get that knowledge and earned wisdom, I must have the courage to make the difficult decisions. And if I remind myself that putting off choosing a price for those marching band arrangements is actually a vote for not selling them, even with all the time and energy I spent writing them, then I am much more likely to stop, quote, researching and to actually ship the work. I hope that trick works for you too, because it is incredibly freeing when it does. Okay, this week's quote is from the legendary Nelson Mandela. May your choices reflect your hopes, not your fears. What a wonderfully to the point way to say that from one of the most remarkable people to ever live. When I have a decision that needs to be made and I'm not making it, that is fear steering the ship. When I let hope take the wheel, it allows me to succeed more and to fail in a more thoughtful way. And both of those things move me forward. So may your choices this week reflect your hopes, not your fears. Thank you to everyone for listening, subscribing, leaving a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get TEM, and simply for your attention, the most valuable commodity any of us have to give. TEM is produced by myself, Andrew Hitz, and is a part of the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network. The theme music for TEM is played by Ben Barron, Rich Kelly, Daniel Lapel, and myself, Andrew Hitz. For show notes, the TEM blog, and to learn more about TEM coaching, please visit our website, tem.fm. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram, and please sign up for the newsletter at signup.tem.fm. And that's going to do it for the latest episode of The Entrepreneurial Musician.